Gettysburg with a friend of mine, Robin Van Pelt. The lecture was on EVPs, and she had asked me to come out and I guess give a more my point of view, skeptical point of view on not only EVPs but how people get them, the methods they use, the equipment, and generally just talk. We really didn't know what we were getting into. It turned out to be more of a spiritual, intuitive kind of group, and I would say there were probably about 15 to 20 people there, and it went really well. I was kind of nervous when I walked in, and because they were talking more about like what were they talking about? Past life regression and a lot of psychic, metaphysical kind of stuff like that I don't really deal with. But we got in there, and it was cool because Robin started off the lecture as not so much a lecture but an open forum. Basically, she set up her laptop and said, I have some EVPs that we're going to play, to which I think one of the ladies that actually was organizing it, she was present when the EVPs were recorded. But she opened it up for questions, and it was really good. A lot of the questions that were coming out of the group were really good. For instance, well, they started off with equipment, like what specific equipment do you use, and I kind of just, after Robin would give her answer, I would go off on my own skeptical kind of look at things, as in, like, I really don't do EVP. I don't do recordings unless I'm invited by another group. In my opinion, I don't take EVPs as evidence, because even though you say that maybe you were the only one in there was no one else involved, and I still got this voice, I wasn't there. I can't verify that. And it's not against you, it's not saying you're lying, but people talk to themselves sometimes when they're alone. People make noises like they cough, or they look around and kind of basically talk to themselves. It's more like, oh, look at that, you know, something like that, when they don't even realize they're talking. Or if they're with a partner, sometimes the partner talks, doesn't realize what's going on, forgets that they're recording. Questions about the equipment that's used. Personally, I don't see any equipment better than anything else. You're basically just recording and listening to it later on. There's more expensive equipment. I mean, for instance, one lady asked, she just got this RT something, whatever it is. Something dark side. She got this RT whatever recorder. So it's kind of like a one of them broken radios, Frank's box, Radio Shack hack things, but it's all built in. You push a button and it scans for you so you can hear it all the time, and I believe it records it all. So she bought that for like $90, and then she also bought an Olympus recorder that was probably about $30 or $40. She wanted to know if one was better than the other. Honestly, this whole RT kind of thing, I don't really buy into. I'm not an EVP expert. I'm not an audio expert. Radio frequencies. I'm not. This is just my opinion on these things. But when you're scanning through the radio, you're doing the whole Frank's box thing, and to get into that is basically you're scanning all these frequencies, and you don't know what you're getting. Honestly, when you're going through frequencies, if you go through them slowly, how many stations are there? I think there's like 106 AM and 108 FM. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's around that. But there's a lot of stations out there, and you can't just think about the number of stations, but you have to think about all the programs that are on those stations. You have religious stations, talk radio, news, commercials. Holy shit, all the commercials. You have country radio, hard rock, classical music, alternative, punk, 80s, 90s, oldies. You have all of this going on all these stations. You have local broadcasts when they cut in with like sporting events. if it's not a shielded radio, if it's not a real good radio, they have been known to pick up CB transmissions and other like cell phone transmissions. I don't know all the technicalities on that. I'm not going to try and bullshit my way through it, but that's the gist of it. And when you have all this going on, it's impossible for anyone in the group that's sitting there listening to these radios to know what's going to come up. As in, you might get a word or two from a news broadcast. You might get a word or two from a commercial. And I know from experience, just listening to the radio, when you switch through, like there's always that time when all the stations have commercials and you can't get some music on at all, and it sucks because all you just want to jam, you want to dance. So when you got all these commercials, have you ever changed the station and while you were listening to one commercial, you changed the station and then the next station has the same exact commercial that you were listening to? Has that ever happened? Because it's happened to me. Now imagine that happens when you're doing your Frank's Box session, your EVP session. You're sitting there and you happen to get 2 or 3 words from one station and 2 words from another station. It happens to be the same commercial. You can get a full sentence of the same voice coming through. Will it have anything to do with what you're asking? Possibly. Because that leads into another problem. When you're out there doing recordings and you're using something like this that's speaking to you, and another issue came up was the Ovilus. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. But if you're out at a certain location and you know what's going on, because you heard the stories, you know there's supposed to be a little girl, or there's a woman that was murdered, or there's an old man that's really angry at everybody and hates everybody, like me. Anyway, and you just know what's going on, so you're already predisposed of what you're supposed to hear. So if you hear, you're going to pick out things that you can associate with what you're supposed to hear. If you hear an angry guy on there yelling, going, get out, or do this, or something that sounds like that, that's what you're going to pick out. You're going to ignore all the things that don't have any relevance to your case. You know, you might hear a woman singing or a woman talking, but if you're not looking for a woman and you're specifically looking for a man to talk, then you're going to ignore that snippet of a woman's voice and wait for the guy's voice. It's just the way we work. Something else that came up was somebody used the Ovilus. Okay, and I guess it's like the updated version where it will spit out the random words, but it also puts it on the screen, like it keeps a log. So every few seconds when it gives you a word, it records it in there. So not only do you hear it, but you can see what it says. And a woman spoke up about it. She said she used it in the field. She gave me the entire background of the thing, and says that she was standing in front of a grave, and forgive me, I forget the woman's name that she said was on the tombstone. But she said all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that the phone, the Ovilus said 4 words, and it was like Sally. Sally, I think the word was Sally. The name was Sally. It was like, Sally, find bones near. Okay, and she said it again, and I was like, you sure that's what it said? She's like, yeah, I can bring it up for you. So it was nice that she was able to bring it up, because it solved 2 problems. One, it didn't say it in the order that she said it. So it wasn't like Sally bones find near. So it wasn't like you're gonna find Sally's bones somewhere near where you are. It was out of order from what it was, what she said it was. The second thing was that there were probably about, I would say, 50 other words in addition to the 4 that she picked out that were said within seconds of each other. So it was like every few seconds another word was spit out. There were 3 other names that that were listed that I asked. I'm like, well, there was 2 names together. I said, who are these? And she didn't know. I said, well, these were only about 20 seconds earlier than when the name Sally was spit out. So, okay. And then other words like noon, midnight, there was God, and other words that had absolutely nothing to do, liquid, nothing to do with what she was doing. And I said, well, what about these? You know, what about all these words? Why aren't you like on top of these and asking, you know, are these relevant? And she didn't really know. She's like, well, you know, the four that I picked out were the ones that made sense to me. And that's your problem. That's a problem throughout the community that uses devices like this. When you use the Ovilus for EVP work, you're looking for specific words. You're not looking at everything and saying, all right, well, you know what? 4 words kind of make sense to what I'm doing. 1 word names a tombstone in front of me. The 3 others, you know, possibly could be something because it says bones. Okay, I'm in a cemetery, so that's actually 2 words. But the rest of them, the rest of the 50 words that spit out don't mean a thing. So you can't ignore that. You have to include that in your assessment of the situation, which means there were 50-some misses and only really 2 kind of hits. You know, kind of. But it's words that are already programmed into there, so they're spitting out random words. It's going to spit out what's programmed into it, and I'm sure because it's a device used directly sold to ghost hunters, it's going to have words like that. And it's just, that's a given. What else? And basically what it came down to is that random words are spit out, and people that are into it, if you're into it so much and you really want it to happen, you play the association game. And you will take whatever comes out of there and you will fill in the story. So they will give you the words and you'll fill in the story around the words to make it fit. That's not how you investigate. It's really not. You need to look at everything as a whole and then go from there. Not just pick out the things that you think are cool and then forget everything else. That's bad science. What else was there? There was the idea of when you're doing EVP work and what do you do with controls? Controls came up. Like, how do you control the environment? And honestly, you can't. When you go to a private home or a restaurant, bar, bed and breakfast, whatever you're doing your ghost hunting thing in, there really is no way to control the environment. Unless you have everybody sit perfectly still and you have everyone with a microphone so you know if they're whispering or not. Everyone's mic'd up. And you know exactly, you have cameras everywhere and can tell exactly what's going on in every inch of that house. And outside the house, then you have no controls. So you could have noises that come in, that bleed through, that you miss. If you're the type of person that says, hey, you know, there's a train outside or a plane's going overhead, there's a car that's passing by, that can get old, and it's a lot, because if you're trying to document every noise, I guarantee you're gonna miss some, because it's just, we're human, we make mistakes. And you're not gonna pick up everything that the microphones do. Microphones are going to pick up subtle noises that you're probably not going to hear. I'm pretty sure you're not going to hear everything that the recorder does. So there's no guarantee that you have listed and documented every single anomalous noise that comes up. I think it's time for a dance break. What do you think? Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave all that below here in the spaces provided. And as always, if you have any complaints and you really hate me for some reason, you can always send an email to Louis Castile in California. He can be found on my Facebook. My Facebook is Kenny Biddle. Awesome! You can contact him and he'll take all your complaints and listen to you until you're done. Let's see. I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you guys actually like these videos and you want to see a little advertisement, all you have to do is send me a t-shirt. If you have a t-shirt for your team and you're kind of like on the same level with me, because if you hate me, why would you send me a t-shirt? I don't know. But if you like what I do, if you want to support what I do, don't send any money. Send me a t-shirt, because I like t-shirts. I like them, and I'll wear them during a video and tell everybody that I love you. I will complain about something, or hopefully give you some kind of points to think about, and you can say, hey, that was my episode. Yes. Awesome! Alright, well, now that I'm almost home, I'm going to cut this video off and go home and drink, because it's been a long day. Alright, cheers.